This is Behind the Music Biz, a Raised Rowdy podcast hosted by Peyton, Heben.
Everybody, welcome to episode 27 of Behind the Music Biz, a Raised Rowdy podcast. I'm your host, Peyton Heben. Today's guest is someone that works in concert promotion. He is the owner of 423 Productions, and he does a whole bunch of work in the event management realm. Please welcome our guest, Chase Bass.
Hey, man. I appreciate you having me in.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
It's always good to kind of talk about what you do and give people a little bit of insight, because everybody's idea is, man, you just go have fun all the time. All you do is party at shows.
Dude, it's hard to call it a job, right?
I know. That's what everybody thinks. They're like, I'm like, well, I do love what I do, and there is a lot of fun involved in it. I was like, but there's a whole lot of damn stress and wanting to pull your hair out and, crying yourself to sleep at night sometimes because you're, watching ticket sales and everything else. And the market can change so quick.
Mm-hmm.
COVID obviously taught us a lesson in the music business.
Oh, that relies so much on.
Yeah, I mean, it's
just
being able
people.
to be out in public and like, being around each other. I mean, that's just one of those things that it's not in the handbook to prepare for.
Right.
And there's all these things, we talk about weather, we talk about active shooters, like you talk about all these different things, but nobody says, hey, what happens if the country shut down? Yeah. And then everybody's like, oh, that happened. Now what do I do about that paycheck? So it's just, this industry can throw a lot of curveballs at you, that's for sure.
Absolutely. No matter what side of it you're on.
100%. Yeah. Whether you're the person that's wanting to buy tickets and get out, be around people and just experience live music, or if you're the person that's putting it together and making it happen. It's tough. People being able to write, COVID was still an opportunity for them to move forward. A lot of good music came out of it. We did get that, but yeah, it's just it's an industry that where all my buddies that are on the other side of the fence are all just like, man, you're just backstage, drinking and having a blast nonstop, and I'm like, man, I'm probably the most stressed out person on the entire property, for the whole day when I put on an event. Because, my responsibility is to make sure everything goes well for everybody else.
Very rarely does it, probably.
Yeah. You dealing with the public, there's no win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you try to get a majority positive response, try to make sure your artist and their camp's happy. You hope that, the majority of the patrons that come through the gates are happy, that the staff feels appreciated, and that there's no major incidents, and the weather doesn't throw a damper on things if it's an outdoor event, which I work a lot in. Then you feel like you did good. But one thing I've learned is it doesn't matter what lineup you announce. It doesn't matter what the ticket cost is. Somebody's going to complain. Like, it's just some people wake up in the morning and they're going to be mad. You could have 100 people in a line, and I could walk down and, give all of them $99. And somebody's going to be like, well, why didn't you give me 100? Yeah, I just gave you 99 you didn't have. And they're going to be like, well, yeah, you're cheap. You should have gave me 100. I mean, it's what you deal with. People wake up ready to complain sometimes.
100%. Yeah, dude, I really appreciate you coming on. I think, I've been following you for a long time. Just watching what you've been doing. It's awesome to see everything that continues to happen for you. And I know it's hard to schedule this because you're not based in Nashville,
right?
So can you kind of just walk me through like what it was like growing up and your inspirations in the music world and kind of what led you to that?
Man, I've got a real humble like upbringing. Like, I grew up in a town called Fort Gaines, Georgia. Like, we were more known for the bass fishing on our lake than for anything else. Everybody's always like, Fort. They were like, so like a military installation or a base. I'm like, no, there's a little Indian fort that's on the bluff by the river, and that's, where it came from. But, we got more cows than we do people. It's 2024, and there's not a single red light in the town, not even a caution light. Like, if they put one up, it'd probably shut things down for a while for everybody to figure it out. But, it was good, though. Like, I grew up being a country boy, like, living on what was, like, halfway kind of a farm when we were younger. We had horses, and we had cows on some of the property and different things. But where like the whole music side of things kind of started coming into place is, my parents have always been like church. Like, if the church door was open, we were walking through it. That's just the way it was growing up. And I appreciate that because it's instilled a lot of stuff in me that I think's gotten me through a lot of tough times, and then helped me kind of be the good person that I am, that I try to be. But so like mom and dad both sang in the choir. My mom had a really good voice, still has a really good voice, but she did a lot of solos and things like that. And as I was getting older, the choir director was like, you need to start, singing in the choir. You can be in the children's cantata. You can be in the children's this. I was one of those people that like I made noise in the shower, or like I sang to myself when something else was playing. And I mean, you always think you sound great, but I didn't really know what it would sound like to other people. So, I started trying my hand at that, and according to everybody, they could have been lying to me, but they all said I sounded great. So, it built a lot of confidence, and I was like, man, I can actually sing. So, like, I started doing a lot of singing at church. Was doing solos at church. Every year we'd do like our Christmas cantata, and I'd have like a special part in that. But then I got to that age where puberty kind of comes into place. And I remember being over at the choir director's house one day, like for one of my private lessons, and her name was Miss Ellen, wonderful lady, God rest her soul. But she was playing a song, and I was kind of singing through it, and she'd stop and she'd be like, "All right," she'd be like, "Let's back up, let's go through that verse again." And I'd go back through it, and she just kind of like stopped playing the piano, and she just looked at me, and I was looking back at her, and I was like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "Hey, we're going to do something different." And I was like, okay. I was like, what are we going to do? Like, am I going to like sing a different part of the song, or like, am I going to start in a different spot and like come out to the front? She was like, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you in the back where your dad and them in the men's section. And I was like, okay. I was like, so I'll start in the men's section and then I'll come around to the front. And she was like, well, no, you're going to start in the men's section and you're going to stay there. And I was like, okay. I was like, so like a light will come on or like something, and I'll just do my solo from back there. And then she finally just like put her arm on me and was like, baby, till we figure out what's going on with your voice, for now, it's just best that you probably try and blend in. Just sing with your dad and them, and we'll go from there. And I was like, my singing career is over. It just kind of hit me. I wasn't blessed like Bieber or anybody to where it kind of like almost even got better. I lost it. Like the voice started crackling and getting deep, and the notes didn't come as easy, and they definitely didn't sound as good. I'm pretty sure it got to the point where I didn't even sound good to myself in the shower. So, I kind of knew at that point, all right, well, I'm not going to sing on stage, but like I loved music. Like, I always wanted to be around music. Every time we'd ever go anywhere, live music was happening. Like, I wanted to hear it. I wanted to be around it. But path derailed, went through high school, went into college, and, ended up getting into sales. So sales kind of became my thing. I was always one of those people that could talk to people and, just drum up a conversation with pretty much anybody. I ended up working for Anheuser-Busch as the district sales manager, and I got put in charge of special events. So we had a music festival come into the territory that I had. It was called Bama Jams. Back in like 2007 is when it started. It was in Enterprise, Alabama. Got put in charge of that, and just it kind of like rekindled that whole like music thing. Like I got around it and was just like, man, I got to get back into this somehow. So I made a good enough name for myself with the venue and the festival management to where, we all became friends. That festival ended. Good friends of mine that are like family, started PCB Entertainment and started Gulf Coast Jam in Panama City Beach in 2013. Well, when they got ready to start it, they called me and were like, hey, we want you involved. So I kind of started out more of like the food and beverage side of things, and then I grew more into like helping with marketing, and then just gradually like my ability to create relationships and just learning and being a sponge from everything that I saw happen got to where I started talking with the artist more, dealing with the artist more, and kind of, being more of a festival director versus just having one individual task. 2019, I got the bright idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to start producing events and concerts, just like on a smaller scale, nothing like, major festival related. So, started 423 Productions. 423 comes from my son's birthday. He was born on April 23rd, so there's actually some meaning to it. Got it started in 2019, announced our first show for March of 2020. And January, all of a sudden, COVID's like the only thing you see on the TV, the only thing you hear on the radio. That's what they're talking about. First show died. Absolutely kick in the gut. We got through it. Weren't able to do any more shows the rest of the year. So, I was kind of scratching my head. And, that church upbringing that I had a little come to Jesus with the Lord and was like, hey, is there something like, am I not supposed to be doing this? Or like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I have this fire for it inside me, but didn't really work out. Like, I lost a lot of money that first year, me and my brother who started the business, but I don't know, just felt like I needed to push forward. So, we tried to come up with ways to stay relevant. I networked my tail off, and, even had like a couple artists, like, back then I think we did a thing with like Ella Langley to where we did like a virtual show, worked with a few other artists to do some stuff like that, just to stay relevant, So got through 2020 and 2021 came around. First show of the year, I think we were just about the first live public show in the Southeast. We had Justin Moore, and he came in and did kind of like an acoustic show because, they still weren't comfortable with letting us do like full band stuff and packing out big arenas or anything like that. Sold out in like 6 days, tops, because, people were just so hungry to get back out and be back around music. And it was like, after getting to see that show, I just, saw people like having a blast and like seeing them making memories, little kids with signs, stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm where I'm supposed to be. So it's just kind of been something that I've grown ever since then. And, I went from only doing stuff in Dothan to where, now I think we've touched 17 states. We do a ton of stuff in Alabama, Florida, Georgia. We've got a show actually right now in Nashville that's going on called Nashville Dance Fest, and that's today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And even started doing some stuff in Pennsylvania. So, I'm just I'm going wherever the music leads me, and just, doing everything I can to stay involved, build a good name for myself and good reputation. And, it's been working out where people call and say, hey, we want to work with you. So hopefully it keeps doing that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what exactly does your job entail as like a concert promoter?
So 423, like we kind of have a wide scale of things that we can do. I've had people that call and they're like, hey, I've got a piece of property. I think it'd be awesome to have concerts on it, and I'll go out and I'll look at the property, and then I'll just kind of sit down with the owners and be like, well, do you have anything in mind, like as far as exactly what you want to do? Do you have any subcontractors, any vendors, like, or are you just saying, here's the canvas, we need you to paint the picture? And, sometimes I'll bring in the full-scale operation. Like, I handle everything from scratch to finish. I handle the security, all the logistics, the production, booking the bands, ticketing, like, anything and everything involved with it. They just provide the property, and then we work out a deal to make it happen. Some venues, they already have a venue in place, and they just are like, hey, we want to work with you to book the shows. You come in, you manage them. And then we work out deals on, how we negotiate contracts and stuff. And then, some people just call and are like, hey, we just want you to book the acts, just book the acts, handle the contracts, and we have a trained staff. We'll handle everything day of show. And I do that. And then I've got some people that'll reach out, and it's just more of like a event consultation, aspect to where, they'll just, pay for my time. I'll sit down with them. I'll look at their venue. I'll help them kind of look at the layout, see if I can help them improve on stuff so they can bring in more revenue and, increase the customer experience. But it just, it's a real plug and play thing, kind of a la carte, to where, you can decide, what do you need from us? And I try and go in and make it work, customize it for whoever, because, I'm a big believer of, any way you can make some music happen somewhere, give people a chance to make memories, it makes sense to at least try.
Mm-hmm. So I've had tour managers on here and artist managers and things like that, specifically tour managers. They tell you that the best way to learn how to do it is to go out on the road with no experience. Go out on the road and try and tour manage somebody, because when you're kind of thrown into the fire, you'll figure it out. You'll either sink or swim.
Yeah.
And something like this is not, to me, it's like not that easy. Where like if you want to start a festival, I started a festival in Florida, and it ran for 2 years, and it was extremely hard.
Oh yeah.
I had no experience in it. All I knew was that I knew bands, I knew artists, and I had to figure everything else out. But to put stuff on like that, I mean, it took a lot, and it took a lot of like people helping me.
Oh yeah.
But like for you, what was it that kind of taught you how to navigate all this and everything you needed, and how to get the money and just do everything that you just explained?
Like the biggest lesson I probably learned early on was you can't do everything yourself. People specialize in different categories for a reason. Surround yourself with the right people, and then let them handle what they do, because they're better at that than I am. I may be better at like the overall general contractor side of it and working with the artist and things, but I'm not the audio visual lighting guy. I don't know that stuff the way my audio visual lighting guys do. So I let them handle that, and I stay out of it and just check in and make sure everything's, working the way it should. When it comes to security, I don't work for a security company, so I try and hire the right security companies to be able to come in and do things. As far as logistics and layout, working at PCB Entertainment with, Randy Lovelady, Mark Sheldon, Dave Trepagna, Joe Gomez, those are some of the guys that I just kind of stood on their coattails nonstop and just listen to conversations, sat in rooms, watch the way they went over blueprints, watch the way they went over site layouts, heard conversations about what went wrong, what went right, and at the end of each event, we'd always do a strengths, weaknesses, things like that everybody would share on a big Google sheet. So just seeing the things that people noticed, I'd sit there and be like, oh man, I noticed this or I noticed that. And I was like, I've got some life-changing discoveries to tell everybody about. I'd have 5 or 6 things, and then other people would have 30 something, 40 something, and it'd be little things that I was just like, man, I didn't even think about that. So just, I got the opportunity to really watch people go through it with the start of a brand new festival, watch that festival grow, see where things were done wrong, see where things were done extremely right. And then the other thing I tried to do was I just engulfed myself in the music scene. I went to every concert I could possibly go to, went to every festival I could possibly go to, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be successful putting on concerts, you got to make sure that the customer's happy. Is it going to be perfect? No. But I would go as a customer and just walk around and deal with the different headaches of being a patron at an event. Did it suck for me to go to the bathroom? Did it suck for me to go get a drink? Did I stand in line for 30 or 40 minutes? Did I stand in line at the bathroom for 30 and 40 minutes? Did it get to the point that I was having to make a decision? Do I just stay and watch the show, or do I try to go get another beer? And just lines to get in, parking. There's just so many different things that you can do to help improve that overall experience, because bottom line is this, is if somebody shows up to one of my shows, the artist may be great, but if it's an absolute nightmare to get food and beverage, if it's an absolute nightmare to get to and from the bathroom, for women, if it doesn't feel safe to go into any and every area, things aren't clean, it can ruin the overall experience. And they may love that artist, and I might have that artist there again, but if they hated everything else about it, they're just going to catch them somewhere else on tour. They'd rather travel and spend more money than come to my show because they don't feel like it's ran properly. So, just kind of watching the hiccups for someone else while still being involved, and then being a part of the growth and, correcting and getting better at things. It really set me up with a good foundation to be able to kind of move forward and do what I do. And
did you say you went to college? I know you mentioned something about it, but
I went to Bethel College here in Tennessee for a while.
Cool.
I had a football scholarship for that, and ended up getting my legs snapped. So football went away. went back home, went to a community college for a while, and then went to Troy University and went online and finished up at Troy University. But yeah,
What'd you major in?
I just like marketing,
Okay.
public relations. Yeah, and people like always ask me like, what do I need to go to school for in order to do what you're doing? And I was like, man, anything that like teaches you to think outside the box, something that like, gets you in front of people to where you're so uncomfortable that you start to become comfortable talking in rooms. Because like I remember like the first time I was in one of my public speaking classes and you had to do this little brown bag speech or whatever. And I thought I was outgoing, and then all of a sudden they were like, your turn, come to the front of the room. And I like got up there and I felt like this weird like lock
throat.
up in my throat.
Your face gets all red,
and I could feel my face like turning red, and I was like, "What? I feel like I'm about to have a heart attack." And I'm like, I'm in front of like 40 people right now. I was like, as a kid, I sang in front of 100, 200 in a church and stuff, and it didn't bother me. But I've gradually learned more and more. Kids don't care about anything. They'll say anything to anybody at any time. That's why they say, if you want honesty, ask a child. Because they're not afraid to hurt your feelings or let it all out. But yeah, it was just like I had to learn to be vocal and outgoing, but then I also had to be humble enough and smart enough to be quiet when I needed to be quiet. And that was a little hard for me at first because like I felt like I got to be involved, like I got to have input, like I'm not valuable if I'm not saying anything. And then I slowly like learned that sometimes I'm more valuable if I just sit back and shut up, and then I can hear what everybody who knows way more than I do and has been doing something way longer than I have, talk and how they kind of work through things. And then maybe I can take something from that. And when I do talk, okay, well now it makes a lot more sense and it is a lot more valuable. So, it's finding that good mix of like listening and then speaking, when you need to. Surrounding myself with the right kind of people has been like a huge thing. Like, whether it be friends, family, and then just like I have a pretty regular staff that I work with and I take everywhere when we're doing events. And it's just, you got that sense of trust. Like, I don't have to worry about what the sound and lights production side of things is doing because my guys at PEG, which is the company I do like all of that with, if that's all I had to worry about, I could go take a nap backstage and just not have to worry about anything because they're that good at it. My buddy Travis Snyder, he's one of the country guys for Tixer, the ticketing site. I don't have to worry about ticketing. Like, it's taken care of. Tixer's a great platform. Travis is available to like help knock out any questions and things, so it's just putting the right pieces of puzzle together to where I put out fires, but it's more like, hey, we're having an issue with scanners, and I go figure it out, or I send somebody to go figure it out, or, figuring out how to get multiple trucks docked at the same time because somebody's truck ended up being wider than we thought it was going to be. There's little things like that I still have to deal with throughout the day. And then the biggest thing is selling tickets. I got to be creative, strategic, and handle the marketing properly. Thankfully, social media can help you do a ton of that a lot cheaper than what it used to be. Because it was radio, it was TV. You're putting ads in the newspaper. Like, you had to pay a lot of money for anybody to know anything about what was going on.
Yeah.
Social media has just like truly changed the landscape of music completely in my eyes. The way we can market shows, and then artists too. You got artists that we've heard a lot of really good music in the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years that we never would have heard if it was the original Nashville way.
Yeah.
You come, you grind. If you grind hard enough, you get heard by the right person. You start to get into the bar scene, and then you gradually work your way up. Hopefully you get on the radio. If you get on the radio, now maybe somebody big starts to pay attention to you. But now, you got guys, girls that are, sitting in their living rooms, or in their garages,
famous,
and they're utilizing the TikTok of the world. They're utilizing the reels on Instagram, and they're getting their voice out there. And it's basically, it gets so loud that it forces labels to hear them. It forces agencies to hear them. So the next thing you know, you got somebody that was a TikTok guy or a TikTok girl. A year later, all of a sudden they're playing, 2,000, 3,000 cap rooms, and then within another year they're playing amphitheaters and arenas and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see in one sense, because you get a lot of stuff that you wouldn't have gotten the old-fashioned way. And then I know it's frustrating for a lot of artists too, because social media is not great for everybody. Like, everybody's not good at it. It's like Mitch Wallace, right down the hall. Good plug right there, Mitch. Like, Mitch is awesome at content. And people like that are so important in this industry, because not everybody just sits around with that creative mind and can just come up with, oh, here's what I'm going to do today. I mean, they get in front of a camera and they play their music and hope the voice makes it work for them. Yeah. But there's just so much more creativity that can go
showing
into
the personality and just,
yeah,
because people, anyone can fall in love with the music.
Absolutely.
But it's like, you got to give them a reason to fall in love with you.
Yeah, you got to stand out.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go play a jukebox and hear a bunch of different songs, but if there's like a human connection you can generate to where I relate to you somehow,
Mm-hmm.
or you're funny, plus you're good at singing, or whatever it may be, then now you really start to build a fan. A fan is somebody who can hear your music, immediately correlate it with your name, immediately correlate it with your face. There's a lot of people out there that I can play a song and people are like, man, I know that song, and I'm like, well, who sings it? And they're like,
exactly.
And it doesn't tie in, just they like the song, they like the words, they like the sound, but they don't know the artist. And that sucks for the artist, because I got a lot of fans out there that don't even know they're fans because they're not even sure that it's me singing it.
And that's like the type of artist that has something blow up on TikTok and that becomes a sound, or like the song, like you hear the song a million times over, and then all of a sudden, like, someone wants to book them for a show now.
100%.
And they go play that show and they can't sell 25 tickets.
Yeah.
Because it's like people know the song, but they don't know you.
Exactly.
Like, like you said, who sings that song? Like, I could tell you the song, I just couldn't tell you who sings it.
Man, there were a lot of artists that had songs pop off right before and during that COVID time frame, that, went number one on country radio. They were getting played like crazy, but that artist never got a chance to do the live shows and start to develop those hard ticket sales and those audiences. So then they came out of COVID, and then it was like, dude's got 3 number ones, girl's got 2 number ones, like whatever it was. We need this much money for a promoter like me. It's like, hey, we need this much money for this person to play this show. And I'm like, wow. I mean, what's our ticket sales history? And they're like, well, they've got 2 number ones. They got 3 number ones. I'm like, yeah, I get that, but does anybody know they do?
Yeah, can you prove? Yeah, can you prove that people know who they are?
Like, having a number one is awesome, but I need it to equate to 1,000 tickets, or 1,500 tickets, or even in a small room, 500 tickets. And there was a little bit of a phase coming out of COVID where a lot of people got humbled. Because they would go out to try and work these tours and create these routings, and tickets would go on sale, and people that immediately knew them, like they were a follower, they were somebody that took time to go find out who sang that song, they bought tickets. But then a lot of other people were just like seeing that face on that poster. They didn't recognize the name. They didn't recognize the face because the person never got that opportunity, and they didn't do a great job social media-wise to create that connection. So then the tickets weren't really moving. I mean, I've had shows like that. I won't name names because I don't want to get burned.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I've seen artists that, like you said, they have number ones, and I've dealt with this firsthand. They have number ones of their own. They've written number ones for other artists.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, they're huge.
Right.
Then you put them on a bill, and you can't sell. You get like 200 tickets.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, where's the disconnect?
Yeah, like,
what's going
how
on?
do you guys, he's like, this person's on the radio.
Right.
How do you not know who this person is? And then it's just like, it makes no sense to me sometimes.
Yeah. radio doesn't have a face, you know, unless, you know, I know some people are like, well, New Age radio does. You can see the you know, album cover right there on it. You know, that's one thing. But if you're seeing somebody's face like repetitiously, you know, if they're constantly getting out there on social media to where it's me, you see me when you hear this sound, then it really starts to build that connection. Or starting in like the smaller bars and like working their way up, you know, then the hard tickets kind of grow as the artist grows. But if an artist pops off and gets 3 number ones, didn't work social media that great, and then all of a sudden they come show up at a venue where they need to sell 1,500 tickets, those tickets don't come easy. Like, I mean, I've had several where, you know, I would literally like reach out to people and like I would just send like a blanket email out to like my buying database and be like, you know, you haven't bought tickets for this show yet, you know, and I'd do like a poll, you know, 1, timing's not right, 2, budget, 3, not sure who the artist is or something like that. And I would start seeing the responses come back, and then I would send the same email database a poll and say, have you ever heard any of these 3 songs, 1, 2, or all 3 of them? And it'd be that artist's music. 85% would come back, heard all 3. But they had no idea. I just asked them about the exact same person. So then I'd get creative with connecting it and sending it back out. It's a process, you know. Everybody thinks you book an artist, you make money hand over fist. It does not work that way by any means. And the other thing is, like, coming out of COVID, the market gradually became extremely saturated.
Right.
You know, you came out of COVID and it was a feeding frenzy for a while. You know, everybody was so hungry to get back out and see live music. They didn't even think about budget. Tickets went on sale. They bought the ticket. They figured out how they were going to get there afterwards. You know, everybody wanted to be where they could see their artists because they hadn't seen them in so long. So promoters were coming out of the woodwork. Festivals were popping up all over the place. And it kind of got to the point that it was so oversaturated that if you see probably in the last year, there's been a lot of cancellations for festivals. There's been a lot of cancellations, you know, for a lot of big events. And it's not just been one specific genre. Like, it's happened at a lot of different genres with festivals. Or they're like experiencing record low attendance and things like that. But, I mean, the economy's not in favor of the blue collar worker right now, and that's who 80-something% probably of your ticket sales are to. You know, that person's sitting there going, all right, you know, I got X amount of gas I got to spend this week, you know, for work. I got all these bills that are coming in. How much money do I have left to spend on tickets? You know, and when some of these major like tours announce, you know, the Morgan Wallen tours, the Zach Bryans, the Laneys, the Luke Combs, like, you know, these stadium shows and different things. You know, they announce, and it's a year out from now, there's shows that are already out there. I mean, some people just go ahead and they plug away that $2,000 that it's going to cost them for 2 tickets for a hotel room and food and everything. They're stuck for a while. You know, they got to wait. They kind of recoup that money before they can do anything else. So for like the smaller independent promoters, you know, like me, you know, I've got to be very strategic with what I decide to book, what city I book it in, and, you know, how close together and how often shows are. I deal with a lot of more like rural markets outside of the major cities just because, I mean, you know, there's no two ways about it. The major cities are normally like, you know, you got Live Nation, you got AG, you've got these major promotion companies that kind of have a fist hold on them. So it's not going to do me any good to try and run into the middle of that and all of a sudden try and, you know, make things happen. I'm not going to win in that situation. So I try to find the spots around them where there's still like a lot of people who love country music and want to be involved in it, but then they may not want to deal with driving into the center of town and dealing with the traffic, dealing with the parking, you know, paying $22 for a mixed drink and, you know, $13 for a beer. I mean, I went to a show not too long ago and it was literally like a Tito's soda and a lime was like $21. I was like, no, I just wanted one. And they were like, no, that's for one. I was like, well, I didn't want a double. I just want a single. And they're like, if you want a double, it's more. And I'm like, wow. You know?
It's insane.
So I try to put on those affordable shows on the outskirts of major cities to where I can still pull from some of that major city traffic, but I'm not forced to deal with, having to compete against them because there's 17 other venues within 5 miles. And I like people to be able to go to a show and pay $5 for a beer, be able to pay $12 for a mixed drink and get some food for 10 to 15 bucks. I mean, it ain't easy because a lot of us like to drink when we're at concerts, and if you're shelling out $13 a beer every time you get thirsty, you may not notice it right then because you're in the moment, and it benefits us as promoters a lot of times. But people wake up the next day and they start to look at that debit card statement or credit card statement, and they're like, Jesus, what did I do last night? So it's like my lane. I know what my lane is. It's don't try and be in the middle of all that. Don't try and compete with who you shouldn't compete with. Get into that kind of independent, smaller market and work with the artists that make sense for it. Don't oversaturate it. Don't make one person have to decide, between 4 different shows, which one I want to spend money on, and just, kind of space it out. And outside of that, I mean, being a promoter is educated gambling. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day. You do everything you can to try and put the chips and the odds in your favor. But even if I study everything and I try and do everything perfect, another show could get announced that could pull 30-40% of what my customer base should have been. Weather could completely change, what's happening. That's another big thing we've seen in the market is used to shows would go on sale. I mean, you sell 80% of your tickets, pretty quick, out of the gate, and then things would just kind of trickle, and then you get a push at the end. Well, with all the cancellations that were happening around COVID, people got so gun shy. And then it seemed like we dealt with a lot of weather, especially like in the South coming out of COVID. So it got to where people, they're like, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen in my life. So some diehards buy tickets out of the gate. You normally see like a really good push, in that first week. And then there may be like a 3-month period where there's, a decent amount of tickets that are sold, but it's kind of a trickle over time. 15-day forecast hits. If that thing looks great, you're probably golden. Tickets start selling like crazy, especially if you're an outdoor venue. That's again where I'm at most of the time. I got to figure out how to get inside more places. But and then you get a really good push at the end if the weather's in your favor. But there's a lot of variables. And then I don't think people really realize the cost that it goes into doing events. Like you said, you did one, yourself, and even when you think you know a lot about the business, until you're sitting on the other side looking at that budget and seeing what all goes into it, you have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, so it was me and a buddy that was just like, hey, when COVID ends, we should start a festival. It was in our hometown, Fort Myers, Florida. So we decided to reach out to business owners that we knew. Hey, we're doing this, and we created tiers. This is what you'll get, and this is how much money you have to pay. Did that. Bought all the talent, security, fencing, porta potties, beer trucks, everything. And then by the end of it, even with ticket sales, you're lucky to break even when you're starting up like that, especially with no experience. So by year 2, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. It's too much.
The amount of stress, mental fatigue, work, labor, emotional, physical that goes into it. It's like I tell most people, when somebody starts a festival or opens a venue, especially with festivals, I mean, you looking at a major festival, you got to almost be prepared to lose money for the first 3 years, unless you just pull something perfect off, because you can't make it in the concert industry or the festival industry without sponsors.
Yep.
You got to have sponsors be a big part of what you do, because that helps you offset some of that cost. And not a lot of sponsors are willing to just jump on board with 2 guys out of the gate, that are doing their first ever show. So you got to build that sense of trust and them see okay, this thing's actually continuing to happen. And it takes about 3 years for sponsors to really go, okay, let's open up the purse string and let's really start and invest in this, because we see it's going to keep going.
100%.
But it's tough, man. It's hard to do so much work, put so much energy into it lose so much sleep over something and hope you break even.
That's just being an entrepreneur too.
Yeah.
It's just taking a risk, knowing what you need to do and taking that, I guess, just like you said, educated gamble. Like it's just a risk.
Well, I mean, 100%. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I mean, it's a whole lot of faith and a little bit of luck, you know, that gets me through a ton of what I do. Just because, I mean, it's such a volatile landscape in the music industry, the way things can go. So, I mean, you got to be a quick learner. You got to take advice. Doesn't mean you always have to use it, because not everybody's advice is the best or the greatest. But if somebody ever comes to you and says, hey, I want to talk to you about something, or I want to tell you maybe a different way of doing something, don't be that person that thinks, I know more than you, I've been doing this longer than you, or whatever it is. People's brains work a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. I've had some people that literally they do nothing in the music industry whatsoever, but have come to me from being at one of my shows and said, hey man, let me talk to you about something. And I just want to throw it out there. You tell me if it makes sense or it doesn't. And then pitch me an idea about something, whether it's food truck layout, whether it's parking layout, whether it's, just all kinds of different things. And they're like, what do you think? And I sit there and I kind of mentally picture it, and I go, it's not a bad idea at all. Then it starts to make sense in my concert mind. But it's easy to get caught up in, well, I've got something that works, or
right.
I've been doing something for so long. If you haven't been doing it longer than me, how can you tell me?
Yeah, and it's hard to break those, break out of your own head.
Yeah.
Where you're like, well, I've done this and it's worked before. Exactly. But there's always ways to improve.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not trying to improve, if you're not willing to take advice, if you can't grow properly without doing that, because I promise you, you're never going to be the smartest person in every room that you walk in,
100%.
No matter who you are. If you think you are, then you might be one of the dumbest people in the room, because you're the one that's going to grow the least at the end of the day. So, I mean, I love to put myself in a lot of rooms and just listen. Yeah, I'll get in green rooms and just listen to artists talk. And it's not because I'm being nosy, but it's just because I want to hear what they're saying goes good at different places. I want to hear what they're saying goes bad at different places. I want to hear them just talk about, hey man, this is one of my favorite venues because of the food, or this is one of my favorite venues because of this, because all those little things, if I don't pick up on that, if I don't think that matters, then, I'm missing out on hints. It's hints at how to be successful. That's a big thing I tell anybody when they're like, hey, how do you get started doing anything? And I'm like, hear everything.
Yeah.
You got to hear everything. Don't try to be the person talking nonstop. Hear everything you can. Make mental notes. My phone, the notes in my phone, I have to constantly send it and save it to a flash drive, because they start taking up so much space. Because I'll just be sitting around people and I'll hear them say stuff and I'll be like, huh. And I might completely relate it to something, nothing to do with what they're talking about, but I could see how it could make sense for me. Well, I pull a little bit of that away and I'll punch it in my phone real quick and make a little note beside it so I know what I'm talking about, because I've had too many times that I've put something in my phone.
You look back
and then
you're
the
just
next day I'll look at it and I'm like,
was I drunk?
I'm like, I had a few drinks, but that still doesn't make drunk chase sense. And then I just then it drives me nuts because I can't remember what I was talking about. So now I try to remember who I was around. I've called buddies before and be like, hey, do you remember when this was said last night? And sometimes I'll get lucky enough. They're like, yeah, remember they were talking about this? And I'm like, that's right. I just wanted to make sure you remembered too. But take notes, man. That's the one. When it comes to school, there's a ton of stuff that they taught us in school. I have no idea when I was ever supposed to use that. Knowing about the Boston Tea Party, I get history is important in a sense, but there's a ton of stuff that I learned that I have never in any way been able to put to use. But then taking notes, that's important.
Yeah, I think something huge that I learned about school, I wasn't always the best student. I never really fully learned how to study properly.
Yeah.
I hated this stuff. I had the same mentality. I was like, why am I learning about this?
Yeah.
I don't see any job unless I'm literally a history teacher. History is my favorite subject, though.
Yeah.
I just like learning about it. But unless I'm a history teacher, like, how am I? What is this gonna like?
Exactly.
What am I gonna need this for with my job? However, there were a lot of times I had to cut corners
Oh yeah.
to like, I have a deadline. Well, let me figure out a way to get this done because I'm like super
Strategize.
last minute. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like the most important thing I learned from like any level of school I was at was
Think
just
outside the box.
Exactly.
Figure out how to get the job done without maybe having to do the entire amount of work in situations like that.
It sounds terrible, kind
well,
of.
I mean, it's that whole, no, but
it's life.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
You know, and I mean that's that. You know, maybe they had some underlying way that they knew that's what they were teaching us when
problem
they were talking
solving.
to me about things that I had no idea how it was going to ever benefit me. Was because I was already being strategic and problem solving. How do I pass this test without really caring what it is that they're trying to tell me right now? Because I don't know that I've ever done anything related to math in my adult life where there was a letter involved in it.
Yeah, I mean,
I have never once in my adult life needed a Texas Instrument blah 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 calculator. Never had to get one out. You know, either a normal calculator does it, or I have a spreadsheet for it and it does it.
Yeah.
Because I put the formula in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like song budgeting, merch budgeting, and then like leaving the tip at a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's like the most math I've ever had to do in my adult life.
I guess the only place letters come into place is when I build like Excel sheets, like things like teach me how to do Excel. You know, teach me how to use Word. Teach me how to use PowerPoint. You know, there's like a lot of things that I mean, I wholeheartedly am like, man, I know why that makes sense. Know even more now why that makes sense. But yeah, it's there were so many things that I was the same way. I found a workaround. You know, I was able to make the grade. I did what I had to do. But I didn't do everything they wanted me to do, you know, just because I didn't have the interest in it. And I loved history. Like, I was like, I mean, I liked reading about it, but I felt like I was just reading a book. You know?
100%. I
never was like, man, I can't wait to use this later in life. Because the only time it has ever helped me is in trivia night. And some random question pops up, and I'm like, learned that in 9th grade. Got it, you know. And I punch it in or I write it down, and our team gets the points. Yeah, and they're like, why do you know that? And I'm like, I like history when I was in school. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is how it benefits me. I'm going to get a free beer and a pizza later on. But, yeah, man, it's like I've loved everything about the music industry, you know, since I've been in it. You know, even the valleys, there's plenty of those. You know, the highs, there's plenty of those. I've got to watch, you know, some artists like go from trying to find a bar to play in, trying to book a show, trying to get places. See a picture of Ella over your shoulder on the wall. Like, you know, years ago, I used to work with Ella, like, you know, trying to find places, you know, for her to play. And it's like, I'd see somebody like her on stage and I'd be like, she is so good, you know, like she deserves more than this. But it was like, you know, at the time, still having to figure out how you get there. Because, you know, what is that astronomical number that they say moves into Nashville on a daily basis? And, you know, everybody's like, well, how do they move into Nashville? You know, how is it not over? Well, because there's that many that figured out they ain't going to make it and they're moving out. But, you know, just seeing like people like I personally know, like Ella. I've been working with Sadie Bass, you know, for a little over a year now. And, like, just the hustle and determination and the amount of effort like you see people put into it, and then to finally see like the profit, the blessing, the production come out on the other end. You know, like we did like a year where me, Sadie, and Emma, like me and Emma were like rotating out, like, you know, being Sadie's caretaker to get her to and from shows, and we're doing like house parties. I mean, playing living rooms, boat docks, backyards, you know, anything and everything. Just to grind, you know. I mean, that's what it is. It's a grind. That's what being an artist is. That's what being a songwriter is. That's what, you know, being a promoter is. Like, the whole thing is a grind. But to, like, you know, this year, I think Sadie's played like 8 of the biggest country festivals in the U.S. A year ago, we were, you know, playing living rooms for, you know, enough money to pay for travel, but to build fans.
Yeah.
You know, it's things like that no matter how hard work it is, and how sometimes I may be sitting at home like second guessing everything and being like, man, is it worth it to like do all this, or should I just go like do a normal 9 to 5? And then I think about stuff like that, or like I'll get like a random message from somebody on Facebook, and they'll be like, I just want you to know, I was going through this. We came out to the show that you put on, and whatever, and like it changed things for me. Like, you know, their life's better, or like, you know, whatever it is. Not because I like personally said something, but just being there and being in that moment, you know, and helping create those opportunities. Whether it's for an artist, whether it's for a fan, you know, my kid, you know, like he used to want to listen to country music for anything. He could rap faster than Busta Rhymes, and like, I don't know how he couldn't remember his homework, but remember every word to a rap song. But like he gradually, like it started like, you know, coming more into that like countryside. He's got his Tacova boots now. He's got his Wrangler jeans, you know, and he's got his little countryside to him and everything. But just like seeing the memories that, you know, I've been able to give him the opportunity to make and like meet people, there's a lot of cool things that can happen from being in the music business. And
for sure.
It's not like everybody thinks it's just fun all the time and all you're doing is just one big party. But there's the perks, there's the moments, you know, there's a lot of artists that I've gotten a chance to meet that make me love country music even more, because I see where they are in their career, and like, you know, the level of artists they are, but in the sense of like how humble they are, to where like they're thanking me and they're thanking everybody that walks in. You know, it's like Justin Moore is absolutely an amazing person, yeah, on stage, off stage. Parker McCullum, like, take his hat off to shake a female's hand, like shakes everybody's hand, says thank you. Like, I mean, I've sat there and watched him do it in meet and greets, and it's natural. It's not like a forced thing. It just happens. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of different people. I had Lainey Wilson at the Peanut Festival in Dothan, Alabama. Not this past year, but the year before. The nicest, sweetest, most down-to-earth people, like, you know, you'd ever meet. It's just really awesome to see, you know, people like that in the music business, because sometimes fans get caught up. I have people like message me all the time, and they're like, hey, can you get a message to so-and-so to do this for my kid that's had this injury or whatever. And some people can think, well, if they don't do it, it's because they're stuck up. And, you know, it's like, I just try and tell people, I'm like, do you know how many requests like the artist one never sees?
That's crazy to ask somebody that, though.
But I mean, it's just like, I get it. You know, if my kid like was in a position to where something might change their life, or, you know, it might be a last wish or whatever, I'd probably be that parent to try and do everything I could.
I guess it's not crazy to ask it. It's crazy to expect it.
To expect it in a sense that you get upset. Mm-hmm. You know, and I've seen people literally like get upset, like commenting under artist stuff, like, I messaged you about this and you didn't even respond. And I'm just like,
they probably don't even run their Instagram.
I'm like, you know, one, they probably don't run it. 99% of them, you know, once they're at a certain level, you know, hardly ever touch that, because in all honesty, it's probably emotionally and mentally better for them not to, because of the junk that's going to end up in there of people that are just nasty people. Yeah, just rude.
Takes away from what they need to get done.
Yeah, focus on like making music. Yeah, because there's enough people out there that like it, that you're living pretty well. Keep doing what you do. Yeah, you love it, enjoy it. There's enough people showing up that love it, enjoy it. Don't worry about the DMs. But yeah, I mean, there are people that, you know, will write a message and then they come back and they're like, well, that person doesn't give a crap about my kid or doesn't care about this. And I'm just like, do you really think that through? Like, they got 6-point-something million followers or something like that. You know how many people are probably like sending something in their DMs per day? Yeah. It's not that they don't care. It's just that there ain't enough care to be able to help everybody. Right. Yeah. So you say yes to one person and then somebody's mad you didn't say yes to them. But it's the public, man. Don't matter if you're working in a grocery store dealing with people coming through the line, or if you're a promoter putting on shows, or an artist, you know, dealing with the public is something else. Oh yeah. Yeah. It ain't for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Do you find yourself falling in love with the like A&R side of things, because if you're booking the talent, you're looking for the next big thing. You're always looking for new talent, you know, because there's obviously the A-listers that come through and play. There's the lower levels of like a B-lister and whatnot. But are you ever looking for like, who's the next big thing?
Man, I honestly, like, I try to pride myself on being the guy that can kind of see it right before it explodes. Because that's, again, like, once they get to a certain level, I mean, Live Nation has them, AEG has them, like, you know, I'm out of the realm. Aside from the festival, when we book the festival, you know, then, yeah, we're doing something big enough that we get the Eric Churches, we get the Luke Combses, we get the Morgan Wallens and things like that. But my day-to-day, like, is 423. I gotta find the person that I can book, and by the time they play in 4 months, they've popped off, and now, you know, ticket sales are on fire. You know, like, I started booking Zach Top like over a year ago, and now Zach is, you know, now everybody's just like Zach Top. You know, the revival of, like, you know, 90s country, like pure country. He's another, like, I had him not too long ago in Dothan, Alabama. Just everything about Zach Top is genuine. I can assure you of that. He's just really laid back. He's 100% as country as his music is. That's all real. But, you know, being able to see people like him catch on to the music, watch, like, the social media trends, and kind of see, like, hey, this is coming. You know, grabbed him. It's like when we had Lainey. You know, it was before she was ever even on Yellowstone, but I booked her in March. Yellowstone happened. 2 other songs dropped that went absolutely nuts and went number 1. So by the time she actually played the event, she was 4 times what their budget was to be able to get her. You know, so just being able to catch those moments like that. Just announced Tucker Wetmore's playing the Peanut Festival this year. Booked that a few months or several months ago. He's another one that's just like, you know, just popping off, and it's just, you know, who knows where.
Especially after a performance like the CMA Fest when he played Hard Rock Stage.
Absolutely.
To see pretty much the entire downtown Broadway just have to shut down because of how many people showed up to see Tucker. I mean, he'll be able to play arenas not too long from now.
I mean, it's unreal. It's like it's one of those things that, like, my biggest fear for somebody like that is, like, the pressure that's going to come so fast. Because I mean, the guy's been performing for a while, and you know, he's been playing and, like, writing music and stuff like that. But it ain't been like what's been happening lately. Right. You know, like you go from, like, a level of comfortable to being thrust into this, like, mainstream. Well, now all the expectations have changed. You don't just have to, you know, sound good, strum the guitar, or whatever. Now you're expected to put on a performance. You know, there's so much more that comes with it. You know, now you're expected to provide X number of ticket sales. You know, you've just there's a lot that comes with it. The bigger an artist gets, the higher the expectations are. But I mean, it's awesome to watch. Like, it's fun to see people like that, you know, I mean, like the running thing when he first started out, it's like everybody thought it was like a Morgan Wallen song and stuff like that. And then, like, he did a great job of, like, constantly, my face, my sound, my face, my sound. And you'd see people come over and they'd be like, wait, I thought Morgan's saying this. And then they'd get to, like, following Tucker. And then they'd, like, fall in love with, like, you know, Tucker's music, Tucker as a person. And it just, like, I mean, it just went viral. And, you know, I mean, now the guy's selling out pretty much anything and everything he announces.
Yep.
You know, I mean, Gavin Adcock.
Insane. The tickets are insane.
Just literally, he just played his fastest sellout hard ticket show with the biggest crowd in Dothan, Alabama this past Friday. Year and a half ago, yeah. Where was he at? Yeah, it was like he was making noise, and, like, he had his cult following, but then all of a sudden it just erupted. And, like, I mean, one of my buddies, like, texted me the other day after that show and was like, dude, he was like, I'd heard a couple Gavin Adcock songs, but I wasn't like, ooh, I'm a Gavin Adcock fan. He was like, I had more fun at that show. And I was like, man, like, the energy is like when you were in high school and there was one of the biggest field parties of the year, and that buddy that was like the guy that plays guitar or sang or whatever, like would show up and sing on a tailgate or on a flatbed trailer, and everybody was just going nuts. It was just a rager. That's how he makes every show feel.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just awesome to see stuff like that. Just kind of pop off, and it changes in the blink of an eye.
And he doesn't change for anybody.
He's
his
Gavin,
live
Gavin.
show, his music, everything is Gavin. That's who he is. I was at Georgia Southern for a year, and it was when Gavin got suspended from the football team
For being on top of the bus.
for being on top of the bus drinking. I was there on Greek Row when he did that.
Yeah.
And then I never thought, I was like, who the hell is that guy?
Yeah.
And then to see him blow up like this, it's insane. I would have never
Well,
thought that it would have been like this. But he doesn't change. He's himself, and that's what people love.
Genuine sales. Yeah, if you put on this facade and you try to be something you're not, it'll work for a little bit, but then people kind of start to see through it, and then everybody's got a past.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start being somebody that you never have been, it's going to get around. People are going to talk about it, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like, well, everybody that knows this person likes it, they were never like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just, if you're gritty, be gritty. If you're grungy, be grungy. If you're edgy, be edgy. If you're not, then that's fine. Don't try to be, and I mean, it's like Co Wetzel's Co Wetzel, and people love him for it. Yeah, he doesn't try and change and be somebody else. I mean, it's real artists that aren't trying to get into a lane that wasn't made for them are the ones that have the longest lane ahead of them, to me. Because it's all about being comfortable, and if you're not the most comfortable being yourself, something's wrong.
Right.
That's where you need to be.
So to wrap up, for anyone that's listening that may want to get into this side of the industry, what's your biggest advice to them?
Man, again, try to get in every room possible and hear everything you can. Pick up on as much conversation. Don't be afraid to start small. Everybody might see, me being a promoter and what I do, and be like, oh, I want to do that. But then it's like they want to skip step 1 through 9. They want to go straight to, skip step 10. It's like I tell people, there's a ton of people, like you said, a lot of people jump into like being an assistant tour manager.
Yep.
Some of them start off at like one of the agencies, as
an
like
assistant.
an assistant.
Yeah.
Start off in the mail room and work their way up, but they get to be in conversations. They get to pick up knowledge. They get to learn, go work with a production company that does, audio-visual lighting, things like that. You might be a stagehand, but you're going to be in some really cool situations. And if you truly want to grow and have the opportunity to be more down the road, those guys see everything. Like you literally are a part of the main part of the entire event coming together. The stage, the security barriers, like everything that's around that. And having that knowledge is a little bit of expertise that'll help you in the future because you have some firsthand experience.
Right.
So, get in all the rooms you can. Go to all the shows you can. Take mental notes, write things down. It's a process. My biggest advice is don't think it's going to happen overnight, because if you do, you can get frustrated really fast and you're going to give up really fast. So if it's something you're truly passionate about, like, be ready to fail, be ready to fumble, be ready to fall down, and, just keep getting back up, learning from your mistakes. That's the biggest thing. Bust your ass, work hard.
100%.
Yeah, it takes that. It is not all drinking drinks, shooting shots, and high-fiving artists backstage. I can assure you of that. I see the artist and the performance less than anybody at one of my shows. When we do our festival, we talk about it afterwards, and everybody's like, "Did you get to see any of this?" And they're like, I heard everybody talking about it, but you're so busy running around putting out fires and just trying to make sure everybody else is getting the opportunity to enjoy it, that you I don't get to just sit out there in the crowd and watch it. So be prepared to work. And just know that it's, success is not overnight, no matter what it is.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man.
Enjoy your time here in town.
Yeah, we'll do. I don't know when this airs, but if it airs
I think it airs in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. Well, Nashville Dance Fest will be over then, so hopefully we'll have something else going by then.
Is it sold? Where is it at?
It's actually in the scoreboards and Nashville Palace parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So it's out back whole parking lot. It's like
Is it sold out?
It's not sold out. We've still got some tickets available for sale. You can do walk up, and it's like you can buy a weekend pass or you can do individual day tickets. Individual day tickets are only $45. There's not a lot of places you can see 3 or 4 artists in one day in Nashville for $45, especially of that level.
Who's playing?
Tonight is Matt Stell, Emily Ann Roberts, and Teddy Robb. Saturday, and then there's some other smaller acts like earlier in the day. And then Saturday is Matt Stell, Aaron Kinsey, and Caleb Sanders. And then Sunday is Diamond Rio, Tiger Lily Gold, and Will Jones.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, we got a little bit of a variety. You know, it's not everything.
Some like
just
sleeper
one
artists,
name.
and then some huge names. Yeah, that's pretty
Exactly.
awesome.
So,
Cool.
Looking forward to
I'll
it.
have to swing by tonight probably.
Yeah, come on.
Cool. Thank y'all for listening to another episode of Behind the Music Biz, a Raised Rowdy podcast. Thanks again to Chase Bass for coming on, and we'll see y'all next time.